everyone. So I am in the Seven Circles garden standing in front of one of our oak trees, and I'm going to teach you today how to cook and eat acorns. Now, acorns aren't a main staple in the modern diet, but acorns were the main staple in a lot of indigenous diets. So the native peoples, the Native Americans that lived in the land, on the land in this area, most of their calories every single day were going to be coming from acorns, especially around the fall time. So the first thing you've got to do is identify your oak tree. Oak. One of the main ways you can tell that it's an oak is by the shape of its leaves. So the oak tree has medium-sized leaves with these big, deep lobes. And the outer parts are going to be pretty rounded, but the lobes are these big cuts that go in. And you can tell it almost looks like if it went a little further, it'd be its own separate leaf. Now, sometimes the leaves are a little more elongated. And this is just the most common oak. There are other oaks that have leaves that look actually quite different, but the through line here, the piece of all the leaves that's the same are these big lobes. So underneath oak trees, you're going to find acorns. Now we all hopefully know what acorns look like. The ones around here are going to be longer. They're probably usually about an inch or two long. There are oak trees that produce smaller acorns, maybe just an inch or less than an inch. But we're going to be looking for the almost inch and a half or 2 inch long. The best acorns you can find are going to be, if you can find them brown, then that's probably going to have the best meat on the inside. I don't know why it's called that, but it is. Now this acorn's a perfect example. There's no holes anywhere on it. Now holes indicate probably weevils or other bugs that have gotten into it, and either you're going to have little maggots in the acorns, which you probably don't want to eat, or you're going to have significant damage to the inside and you're not going to get much from it. So a lot of the time the holes are right on the bottom, or they're on the sides, and they're very, very, very tiny. Here's an example of one that has a hole. You see that tiny little hole? So this is one that I don't want to keep. I want to get rid of that one. But this one is great because it's all clean. Now if you find an acorn with a hat, with a cap still attached, an acorn cap, let's see if I can find one right around me. I do not see any. Well, an acorn cap, yes I do. This is the little acorn cap, right? It sits on top of the acorn, like this, and that's how it attaches to the tree. If the acorn cap is still attached and it's easy to pop off, no big deal, that's a great acorn. If it's still attached and it's really tough to get off, you can't get it off, don't eat that acorn. It probably means that the tree expelled it for some reason. It just got rid of it because maybe it wasn't a good acorn, or it was infested with like a wasp or something. So it's not something you're going to want to eat. But a nice clean brown acorn is going to be your best bet. Now, although it'll be fun to collect the acorns, we do need to keep in mind that even though it's a fun thing to try and eat, and they're actually quite delicious and nutritious, it is the main source of food for squirrels and maybe if they're cracked open, birds and bugs. So we don't want to be greedy and take all the acorns. A good rule of thumb is take less than half. All right, take only what you need. So if you want to try eating it, but you don't think it's something you'll be doing often, maybe pick out 10 or 20 good acorns and leave the rest for the animals. So we're back at my house now with my acorns that I have. Now I have actually done this process, so I just collected 2 to show you. But the next thing you're going to do is have to crack the shells off. So I just have a nut cracker that I found at a thrift store. You can either use one of these, or you can always smash the shell with a rock. With that, please be mindful of your fingers. I don't want anyone smashing their fingers. But if you can do that safely, and to get the shell off, it's basically just gonna, I don't even know if this one's a good one. Meh, it's not. Let's try this one. So acorns are not safe to just immediately eat. You're going to need to soak them and boil them. This one's also not good. Well, they're not always perfect. So acorns have a substance in them called tannins. And tannins are mildly toxic in small amounts, but in large quantities, they can actually really damage your liver. So you obviously don't want to be ingesting tannins. Now, tannins are in things like black tea, right? And people drink black tea, but if you were to drink gallons and gallons of black tea and the tannins in black tea aren't super high, you could have a problem. So tannins in acorns are pretty high, so you need to boil them out. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get a pot of water, put it on your stove, and you're going to bring the pot of water to a boil. Then, once all your acorns are cracked and the water is boiling, you're going to put all your acorns in, all the meat of the acorn, into the pot of boiling water and let it boil for 20 minutes. Turn off the heat, take your pot of water, strain it. You're going to have your acorns in your strainer. Then, do it again, 5 full times. Now the water you're going to see is a really brown, muddy looking water, and that's all the tannins coming out. You can also choose, after you do it 5 times, to soak them overnight. But basically, you could just remember, it's not going to hurt you to take a little bite. You could take a little bite. It's really good, actually. And if it tastes really bitter, or it leaves your mouth feeling really like sucked of saliva, like so really dry, then you know you still have tannins and you've still got to boil those out. So generally 5 boils is fine, 5 for 20 minutes. But if for some reason you've got really tannin filled acorns, then you're going to have to do it some more. So do it and just taste it after every one. How does this one taste? Yeah. Oh, I did 6 boils and that was good. Really depends, but at least 5. Then you're going to get them and they're going to look darker and you're going to have a mass of acorns. Now, you can either roast them with some garlic and spices, which might be delicious. You can dry them and then powder them in a food processor or blender or like with a mortar and pestle. And use that as like a acorn flour so you can make bread from it, which would be really cool, or muffins. Or you can just, they're not super flavorful, but you could just eat them straight. So I've done it 2 ways. This is my second batch of this year's acorns. And my first batch, I roasted them at 175 degrees in my oven for maybe close to an hour. And then I kind of just let them dry. But I check them every so often. Not all ovens are the same, so 175 on mine might provide a certain roastedness, whereas 175 on your oven might be a little different. So check it every 5 to 10 minutes. And once it seems like it's roasted, take it out and let it cool down, and either then blend it or enjoy. Or if you have roasted it with fun spices or garlic and salt and pepper, that sounds really good, then you can just enjoy them. So what I'm going to be doing actually with this batch is I'm not going to be roasting them to dry them. I'm going to be drying them on a window screen. So with this process, I want to try and use as little energy as I can. So with this batch, I boiled it 3 times and I've soaked it, 4 times. So overnight twice and during the day then twice. So soaked it 4 times and the water was not nearly clear, but a lot less
dirty the last soak, and they don't taste like any tannins. So I'm gonna get a window screen and I'm gonna put them out on it and dry them.
This is a window screen that is old. It's mesh, right, with the metal on the outside. I just rinsed it off. I'm not super particular about germs and dirt, as you probably know. But I gave it a good little wash, and what I'm gonna do is just kind of put them out on it, give them some space, and I'm just gonna maybe break up the big ones and dry it outside. Now, I found this window screen. I put it out to the people I know, and I said, hey, does anyone have a window screen they are not using anymore? And sure enough, someone immediately came up and was like, oh, I've got a window screen, I've got 5. So I took some so we can do this in the garden if and when we come back. But I also took a couple for home so that I can dry things at home. All right, so I'm breaking up the big pieces. And I think the cool thing about this window screen is, one, it cost me nothing. 2, it doesn't cost any energy to the planet. It doesn't require any energy of the planet to heat my oven for an hour. And it's a really natural way of doing stuff. It's gonna get that sunlight, that heat on these, that natural light, and it's gonna, I think the sun's energy is gonna get to go into these, which is a really wonderful process. So after they're all dry, I think with my other batch, I'm gonna re-roast them in a little bit of garlic and olive oil, because that sounds really good. And then with this batch, I'm gonna make some special pumpkin muffins for the autumn season to enjoy. So I hope you guys try this. It's kind of weird, right? It's not something that we normally eat, but it's something that indigenous people survived on, and it's the idea of feral food. Now, I think I've talked about this with the ferments that we've been making together, and that if we always get our food from the supermarket or from the store, it's a very controlled way of getting your nutrients, rather than getting your nutrients directly from the earth in its most wild form. I mean, who knows what, there's so many nutrients packed in here, and I think the wild foods provide a different form of life, a different form of energy. When I go out and I'm foraging these acorns, and I'm cracking them, and I'm boiling them, and I'm drying them, and I'm cooking with them, or I'm doing that with other herbs and plants, I'm so connected to what I'm eating and what I'm creating. I'm putting all this energy into it. That's going to be giving energy back to me. But I'm connecting to the land and to the energy of the land, and I'm giving back to the land, and I'm taking from the land in a way that I think is really, really special and really, really meaningful. And I really encourage you all to, even if this isn't something that you continue to do, if you don't continue to eat acorns, but you just try once to get that experience of both connecting to the land and what the indigenous peoples relied on for survival, I think that would be a really beautiful thing, to see that connection firsthand. All right, enjoy.